The future of Daniel Ricciardo's F1 career has been a topic of massive debate recently. Brought back to Red Bull to potentially replace Sergio Perez if needed, it has been argued a number of times that he should have been given that seat. At the same time though, his performances at VCARB have been inconsistent, even if he has been outperforming Yuki Tsunoda over the past 5 races. At last weekend's Singapore Grand Prix, it became clear that Red Bull had finally made a decision over what to do with Daniel Ricciardo, and it isn't the outcome his fans will want. Today, I'll check out what the future holds for Daniel Ricciardo after his shocking statements about his imminent replacement in Singapore. So, don't go anywhere. Ricciardo's last lap dash for the fastest lap at the Singapore Grand Prix took what could be a pivotal point away from Lando Norris. Now, even if Lando Norris wins every single Grand Prix for the rest of the season and secures the fastest lap, Max Verstappen will still win the driver's title if he finishes second in each race. Of course, that's a hypothetical which has almost no chance of coming true, but Ricciardo stealing that point away could still prove to be pivotal. Post-race, there was plenty of discussion over whether he'd done it to help Max Verstappen or if VCARB had let him go for it so he could go out with one last achievement. His fastest lap of the race was also a track record. Whether there is some grand conspiracy of the two Red Bull teams working together or not, it was a nice moment for Ricciardo, who also earned Driver of the Day in Singapore. VCARB giving him the chance at a fastest lap and his Driver of the Day award were just 2 of a number of clues that hinted that the Singapore Grand Prix was probably his last ever F1 race. F1 journalist Nate Saunders tweeted a photo from the paddock after the Singapore Grand Prix, showing the VCARB guests forming a guard of honor for Ricciardo as he left the team's hospitality suite. He replied to his own tweet saying, "Ricciardo's quotes to us certainly sounded like a man who had just finished his last F1 race." Australian content creator and photographer Kim Illman also posted on his Instagram saying that Ricciardo had a lot of emotional goodbyes in the paddock before leaving late in the night. He also posted to his Instagram story a photo of the 2 of them having a final hug goodbye. Illman then took to his YouTube channel to say that while there hadn't been an announcement from Red Bull or VCARB about Daniel's future yet, the 8-time race winner was in no doubt about his future, and neither was the rest of the paddock. He described it as bizarre and heartbreaking that Ricciardo's last F1 race came with absolutely no fanfare because his firing from Red Bull hadn't been announced yet. On the BBC's live text feed for qualifying on Saturday, Rosanna Tennant revealed that Ricciardo seemed to know that it was his last ever qualifying session. For a veteran of the sport like Daniel, it was a sad way to end what has all but been confirmed as his final ever F1 race. If Red Bull had announced prior to the race weekend that Daniel was going to be replaced, then he could have been given the proper send-off he deserved. Instead, he was awkwardly tailed by Red Bull's head of communications, Paul Smith, to all his media duties, and despite everyone seeming to know he was finished, no one was allowed to say anything about it. While Ricciardo's career has struggled since he left Red Bull for Renault in 2019, his personality and charisma has meant he has always been a fan favourite. The Chinese whispers that Red Bull will replace him with Liam Lawson for the United States Grand Prix in 3 weeks' time was not what the 14-season veteran deserved. Asked if setting the fastest lap at the Singapore Grand Prix, which he finished last in, was a final hurrah, Ricciardo told BBC Radio 5 Live, Possibly yeah. So if it is, I guess a nice way to say adios." He added, "I'm not too sure what the plan is, but I mean, look, I've obviously got a good idea." Asked why the team had pitted him for fresh tyres at the end of the race, a spokesperson for VCARB said, "If it was to be his last race, he wanted to go out on a high." The VCARB spokesperson added that the team did not know whether a decision had been made. Ricciardo's future will be decided by Red Bull management, primarily team principal Christian Horner and motorsport advisor Helmut Marko. After the Singapore Grand Prix, Horner was asked about Ricciardo's future. While he didn't confirm that Daniel would be replaced by Red Bull before the next Grand Prix, he did say that there was a bigger picture beyond Daniel, suggesting that the team will look into the future now, rather than allowing Ricciardo to see out the rest of the season. "We've now got a period of time where we will evaluate all the relevant performances of the drivers. There's a natural break in the season to reflect on that, and there is a bigger picture beyond Daniel. He's just one part of the jigsaw," Horner revealed. Horner has always been a supporter of Ricciardo, saying that he still believed he was a driver who used to regularly compete for race wins and podiums while at Red Bull, suggesting that he had just lost his way at Renault and then McLaren. Horner hoped that by bringing Daniel back, he might recover the form he had shown with Red Bull in the last decade and become a potential replacement for Sergio Perez as Verstappen's teammate. But more often than not, he's been outperformed by teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Ricciardo told Sky Sports, "I have to acknowledge why I came back after the McLaren stint, and I always said I didn't want to come back just to be on the grid. I wanted to fight at the front and get back with Red Bull. It didn't come to fruition. I also have to ask myself of what else could I have achieved, and what else is there to really go for? I put my best foot forward, and maybe the fairy tale ending didn't happen, but I also have to look back on what it's been. 13 or so years, I'm proud." Ricciardo had to choke back tears when asked why he'd sat so long in the cockpit of his car after the race. He said, "A lot of emotions, I am aware it could be it. Just exhausted after the race, so a flood of emotions and feelings and exhaustion. The cockpit is something I've got very used to for many years. Just wanted to savor the moment." Max Verstappen was asked after the Grand Prix about whether Ricciardo was still going to be in a VCARB seat for the United States Grand Prix. He gave a vague response which sounded a lot like a goodbye to his old teammate. He said, "Daniel's a great guy. I think he's proven himself as a great Formula 1 driver. He's a friend of mine, and being in this kind of position is never nice. But on the other end, I don't think he has to feel sorry for himself. Sometimes things maybe don't work out the way you want them in certain stages of your career, but you still have achieved a lot more than anyone could ever dream of in their lives. So even if this is, let's say, the last race or whatever, you can still look back at something amazing that not many people can achieve and do something else." Sadly, with all the evidence on show, it seems that it's just a matter of when, not if, Red Bull will announce Ricciardo's replacement. Liam Lawson will be the driver to replace him. The New Zealander showed plenty of promise when he deputised for the injured Ricciardo in 2023, and Red Bull will hope he can perform just as well in the remaining 6 races this season. While this is the end of Ricciardo's F1 career, he's far from done with motor racing. He hinted at a potential stint driving NASCAR in the future. "I grew up a fan of NASCAR," he said. "I'd like to drive a NASCAR. I'd love to drive around Daytona, for example. But would I like to compete? Well, yes and no," he went on. "I know it's not what I grew up doing, and I'll probably get smoked," Ricciardo admitted. "So I don't know if I need that, but I would love to experience it." If not NASCAR, then he said that V8 supercars could hold a future for him, with the endurance racing at Bathurst being a good target. Obviously, it's the V8 that do the race there, but there's the 12-hour and stuff, so maybe that's one I could compete in. If a V8 team said, "Hey, do you want to do a few laps around Bathurst? No pressure, just experience it," then I'll definitely take that up. Wherever Ricciardo ends up after Formula 1, he is bound to find success. His occasional cameos in F1 coverage positions have all been excellent, and there'll be plenty of broadcast companies eager to get the charismatic Aussie onto TV. But what do you think he should do? And are you upset that Red Bull didn't give him the chance for a proper send-off? Let me know your opinion in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.